All right, we're gonna talk about the exterior of the car next. So those yellow things you see behind me are not fog lights. So those lights are actually your high beams. I know it's in a weird location, but those are actually high beams. We do not have fog lights on this car. Those are high beams. So it's situated in a weird location, but just be aware that when you turn those on, you are blinding other drivers. So don't turn that on if you have drivers in front of you. Your headlights, or the headlights of the car that you're looking to possibly buy, will actually not look like this. So almost every car, like 95% I'd say, of BMW i3s have LED headlights. So this car came with what's called the value package, and they dumbed this down. So this is actually a halogen housing. I did put aftermarket LED headlights in here that are designed specifically for halogen reflector headlights or headlamps so that they don't blind oncoming drivers. However, just note that your car will look different. I do recommend, especially nowadays, 2021, that even if you're buying a used car, which you should, that you look and make sure that your car does not have the value package and does have LED headlights. The wheels of this car is extremely narrow, like the narrowest tire car you've ever seen in your whole life. So what this means is that in the United States, there's only one company that makes tires for our car, because these are very specific. And I'm just hoping and praying that that company has a contract with BMW to make these forever, because if they stop making it, we're not gonna have tires anymore. So these are the Ecopia tires. You probably can't read that here, but just know that this tire is fairly rare and you're not gonna be able to find it in stock at tire shops. So a lot of us are gonna have tires at home or in our apartment or wherever as backup. Some cars will have a staggered setup, and what that means is that the back wheels are slightly wider than the front wheels. Other i3s will have the same width tire all around, which means you can rotate them. Tire wear, especially on the rear, because this is a rear wheel drive car, all the power comes from the back, is not going to be very good. The tire wear, you can expect to change tires, no joke. The back of the car has the Rex, where a spare tire would normally be for other cars. So this car does not have a spare tire. Even the cars that don't have the Rex, the empty space there isn't large enough to accommodate a spare tire, even smaller one. And what's weird about this, and I'm not sure how they got away with it, but this car also does not have run flat tires. These are just standard tires, which means that if your car needs to be towed, it's going to be a bigger issue, because the i3 is required to have a flatbed tow truck. Okay, a flatbed tow truck, or what's called a dolly system. And if you're not familiar with the dolly system, basically the tow truck would be right here, and there would be separate metal pieces with wheels on them, one for each tire, and then they would pull the car. Okay, this car cannot be set on a standard tow truck. So that means that if you are calling for a tow truck from your insurance company or whatnot, you may have to wait a little bit longer, or a lot longer, because tow trucks are everywhere, but the flatbed ones are few and far in between, and there's higher demand for those relative to availability of a flatbed tow truck. So, and actually I think it's the back that would be that would have the dolly system, not the front. Yes, these mirrors do fold, however they're not folded manually. There's actually a button on the inside of the car right by the handle, and it's this guy right there. So you're gonna press that and you'll see the mirrors fold on their own. If you do decide to code the car, then you can adjust it so that these automatically fold at various miles per hour, so that if you exceed 5 miles per hour or 10 or 15, then the mirrors automatically unfold. Another thing you can do is so that when you lock the car, the mirrors will also fold on their own. So I admit it, I'm one of those people who walk away from the car and then forget something. I need to come back to the car with no intention of getting in and actually driving it. So I don't want those mirrors folding and unfolding based on me locking or unlocking the car with the touch handle. I'd rather use the key. So mine is set up to fold and unfold based on unlocking and locking using the key fob only. You have it set where when you lock the doors, the mirrors do fold. And this is a good way of knowing if the car is locked at a distance, because when you're parked and then you walk away, sometimes you forget if your car is locked or not, and you can always just look at the mirrors and know that it's locked. You can unlock and the mirrors will unfold by themselves. You'll notice the door handles open kind of backwards. So it opens on this side and it hinges on here, and this is the front door. So it's a little bit backwards and a little bit kind of finicky, but once you get used to it, it works like any other door handle. It's just a little bit different in design. One thing you need to be concerned about is this button right here, the trunk release. Ever since the release of this car, BMW has not limited your ability for this button to function while the car is in motion. That means if you're at highway speeds and your kid grabs a hold of the keys or you bump into something and you accidentally press this, the trunk will release at speed. So be very, very careful. This has been an issue for a long time, and I'm sure it's just a software thing that they could use to resolve it, but BMW hasn't done anything about that. So just a warning, do not press that while the car is in motion. Some people are concerned that with the aggressive brake regeneration and one pedal driving, when you're not engaging the brake and you're simply slowing down by letting go of the accelerator, people are worried that the brake lights do not turn on to warn rear drivers that the car is slowing down. But that's not a concern. I don't have the equipment to put this together and to prove it, but there is some guy on YouTube who did a very good video, comprehensive video with different camera angles, inside the car, outside the car, and did prove very well that even when you're letting go of the accelerator and not pressing on the brake lights do turn on when it's slowing down. So that does warn the drivers behind you, and that's not anything you need to be worried about. The Frunk is not waterproof, so do not put anything in here that you feel would be sensitive to water, like a laptop or anything electronics. After a while, you will find that leaves collect in here, and so water does go in there. It's not really a concern for the charger, but just be aware that this compartment is not waterproof despite the trunk or the hood being on top of it. I would never recommend this car as a car for long journeys, but there are people who plan to have long journeys with this car and put 1 gallon of gas in this frunk area to expand their usage of the Rex in case they're driving and there's no gas station nearby. So a concern may be that you're putting flammable liquid in what's designed to be a crumple zone of a vehicle. So there is that concern. I'm not so much concerned because the likelihood of you getting into an accident or a collision such that it does spark a fire and that does ignite is very unlikely, whereas the likelihood of you needing the gas in a gallon tank here to consider even putting one in there is probably highly likely. So don't be worried about that. If it was me and I was going on a long trip, which I would never do with an EV, but putting a gallon of gas in here in its own tank, I don't think really would be that much of a concern. The jack stand point for this car is going to be right there, and there's something a little bit funny about it. We're going to show you a zoomed in photo of what it looks like underneath the car, but the bottom line is that BMW recommends the use of an adapter before you lift the car at those jack points. What you'll notice under here is that this part is somewhat hollow. There's kind of a indentation here. So normally this would be flat. So BMW recommends that you buy an adapter that basically fills this void and turns it into a circle that's flat, and that goes against your jack stand or your jack, so that you can lift the car up without putting too much stress along this perimeter, which is very thin. I can't imagine most mechanics or body shops would actually have that adapter or be using it necessarily, so I don't think it's a huge deal, but just realize that this car is heavier than it looks, and the recommended strategy or use is to have an adapter that fits in here when you're lifting the car up or putting it on the stand. This is a 2016 car. In 2017 and newer, you'll see that this part of the portion of the car is colored black with a decal. When you're buying used cars, or if you already own one of these, you'll find that that gray decal in extreme heat will fade and discolor it. It turns kind of a brownish color. Some people have chosen to remove that decal altogether, But you'll notice that when you do that, there will be a line between where the decal was and where the bodywork is that did not have the decal. So that's something that you can polish out, but just be aware that if you're looking at cars to either buy or if you're expecting extreme heat, you will have that issue with a discolored decal, again on this upper portion. I am a huge fan of sunroofs, and you're wondering why there's no sunroof here. And that's because I did have a loaner car while this car was in the shop at one time for a warranty period. And the issue with having the sunroofs is that the sunroof can't be covered completely. So basically there's the glass and the other layer that you can kind of close out with is a mesh material. So even though you're closing it in extreme heat, the sun's gonna be beating down and basically burning your head. So anyone who's sensitive to the sun or doesn't necessarily want the sunroof open or exposed to heat or the light at all times, you're gonna be a little bit disappointed by that. So unfortunately, that's not something you can kind of take on and off. It's not an opaque cover like most cars have with their sunroof cover. There is no blind spot detector, nor is there an option to have one on these cars. Yes, an electric vehicle that's supposedly new age for its time does not have blind spot detectors. And again, not an option, you can't get it. So it's something you just need to be aware of and don't expect that. There is a way to open both windows using just the key fob. What you're gonna do is you're gonna click to unlock, and the second time you're gonna push it and you're gonna hold on to it. And the windows will unlock for as long as you hold it. If you wanna close the windows back, again remotely, you're gonna lock it and you're gonna press it a second time and you're just gonna hold on to it. And there the windows close. One thing to be aware of if you're considering this car is that the back window does not operate. Okay, the back window does not operate, nor are there rear vents in there. So your back seat passengers will not have the same temperature that you're experiencing in the front. So just something to be aware, they're not operable. It may be a make or break for some of you. For me, it's not that big of a deal. My kids just kind of suffer through it. Although this is a high beam, integrated into it is the turn signal. So unlike a normal car, turn signal is part of the headlight. The turn signal here is not part of, again, not a fog light, but the high beam. So just something to be aware of. Something I forgot to mention in the last video about the Rex and the engine bay and all that kind of stuff regarding the i3. This, you can charge in the rain. You can charge in the snow. You can leave it while it's snowing. You can leave it while it's raining. You can plug in, you can unplug. It's not really a concern. Naturally, you'd be concerned about water and electricity mixing together, but whatever BMW has done, it's made it such that we can charge and discharge, or not discharge, but you can pull the plug out while it's raining and snowing and thundering or whatever not. Hopefully you enjoyed this part 2 of the boot camp of the BMW i3 going over the exterior of the car. If you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comments below. If you have something to add or something I may have missed that you think should be included in this video, go ahead and leave that in the comments below as well and share with other people who may be watching this. So this is the end of the part 2. Part 3, we're going to go over the interior.